Hi, John. How are you today?
Hi, Elliot. Doing great. My daughter Melissa had her wedding with family and friends last weekend because it was severely limited a year ago because of COVID. So we were very excited to be able to do that. So that was a great time, and just back from that.
Always good to have good family events. So while you were away, our good friends at the various regulatory agencies have been very busy trying to meet the year-end schedule for a bunch of regulations and other issuances. So there's a couple I think that would make sense to talk about. One is the proposed rule on beneficial ownership information reporting. And then the other one is an advance notice of proposed rulemaking about how to bring more of the real estate uh, business under the BSA. So I assume, even though you were away, that you had a chance to at least catch up on the fact that those have been issued.
Yeah, and I'd say, yeah, I think two things. Right, they're trying to make year-end deadlines, and also that those particular two topics that you mentioned are under the rubric of fighting corruption. There was a new report, U.S. government strategy on countering corruption, and that talked about anonymous shell companies, talked about real estate. These things were already obviously baked. But yeah, that's right. So the beneficial owner proposal takes a number of all the comments provided during the advance notice and puts does a series of things on who must report the information, when, what information they must provide, all of that. And you got 60 days on this one. And the one thing I would mention, besides everybody should walk through and read, 55 plus pages, because it's really essential, as we always say, to comment. But one of the things I would point out is a group that we're familiar with, and we've actually talked to on a number of occasions on some other issues, Transparency International. They were very positive about the proposal. So if you go to their website, they talk about a number of things that they thought they complimented Treasury on doing, particularly some of the changes in timing. They talked about, the rule does require entities to file the information in quote a truly timely manner. And I guess in their comment process, they focused Treasury on what goes on in France and Luxembourg that requires entities to update their information within 30 days of any changes. So the draft rule adopts that approach. So it says that a covered entity that changes beneficial ownership information has 30 days to file. That's one of just many items in there, but I thought that was particularly interesting. They were not as happy about exemptions. They think the exemptions could be a loophole, a significant loophole. But I think a group like that, an advocacy group like that, being pretty complimentary on a proposal is sort of rare, because I like every group on what they're on, they always seem to want more. But I was very impressed with the detail that they provided.
Yeah, that is interesting, and it is a long proposal, in part because they do a comprehensive review of the groupings of comments they received and why they chose to make a change or not based on the comments, which is normal. So you mentioned 60 days. I believe that takes us out to, I think that would be like February 8th or so. So if you do want to get comments in, that's probably a January task for you. The advance notice of proposed rulemaking on how to regulate real estate also is on 60 days, and also will your comments will be due that same day in February. Um, Basically, what's happening here is there's recognition that we in the U.S. have been slow to really comprehensively bring real estate under our AML CFT regime. That was noted by FATF, I want to say in 2016, in their review of the U.S. program. Uh, there is some reporting obligation of companies. Usually it's title insurance companies tend to be the reporters for transactions in residential real estate. But there's nothing on the commercial side. So the proposal, or at least the advance notice, sets out the problem as it does, talks about a number of key areas about like which transactions should be covered, um, and what information should be required in terms of both the record keeping and reporting, and then asks for insights into the burden or burdens on the folks who would end up being the record keepers and reporters. We're going to publish on Tuesday a blog post that has more detail on this one. But I recommend this one for people to read as well. It published this morning. Well, it actually published on Wednesday morning when we're recording this in the Federal Register. And it's a 14-page proposal because they haven't gotten any comments yet, so they don't have to recite all of that stuff.
Right. And yeah, I mean, again, advance notice, but there's no question in my previous life with the Bankers Association during the post 9/11 activity, the Patriot Act, we pushed really hard to get real estate involved here, and it never resonated with policymakers, and that's been a big mistake. And so while that industry and those that advise that industry will have ample opportunity to comment on what can be considered, quote, burdensome, unquote, it's really time for the domestic real estate market to step up. And so hopefully there'll be a good give and take. But if you look in certain cities, the reason we have geographic targeting orders is because property's been bought in cash by oligarchs, PEPs, cartels, you name it. And we got to start figuring this out.
That's exactly right. They talk about the geographic targeting orders. Interestingly enough, when they go through kind of the history of the various looks and guidance that they have taken and issued, they actually refer to that period post 9/11 that you just referred to, in acknowledging that they looked very seriously at it, but never issued regulations. There isn't any real explanation on why they didn't, but they acknowledge that. I guess I do agree with you. Failed effort, almost 20 years ago that could have turned into something meaningful and closed the key loophole.
They blew it. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They blew it, and maybe it was hardcore lobbying. Who knows? But now's a chance to make amends.
Correct. So there were a couple of other things that were issued this week. One of which was some updates to the FFIEC examination manual, which you and I will try to talk about in the near future. And John, I think there was one other that you were mentioning.
Yeah, the Treasury Department has been involved in some anti-corruption dialogues and meetings. So there's been a number of reports and announcements issued from Treasury broadly dealing with corruption, besides the report that I mentioned earlier. So there's been some of that. Going back to the issue on the manual, we will talk about that. I'm part of a stakeholder dialogue with the humanitarian groups that are looking at continue to potentially solve that problem, because we've moved a bit, but we haven't solved it. So more to come on that, and we'll give you our quick take on how a manual change from a practical standpoint might impact our clients.
Okay, so let's do our shameful ads. I'll do the first one. The first one is
shameless plugs. They're not shameful ads.
I beg your pardon. You're right. You're right. Shameless plugs. If you like this and you liked our other ones, you can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, we have lots of other great content on our website, and we have our last monthly webinar of the year coming. John, why don't you talk about that?
Yes, it's taking a look back at 2021 and a preview of 2022 on anti-human trafficking issues. We have a great panel, great moderator. Our colleague Joe McNamara will moderate. We're going to go into how the financial sector has to deal with this, some policy issues, and a view from academia. So I know you're going to get a lot out of it, and that's on the 16th at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Yes, go to our website and you can register there, and then you'll get the link and you can join us. And we're already working on our 2020 schedule of webinars, and you'll start to see those advertised later in the month. So John, you have a great week, and we'll be back together next week with another installment of This Week in AML.
Take care, Elliot. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.